You're watching Kenosha Community Media.
Well, hey, Jason, for me,
Either he wants to say something or eat something, one of the two.
Take the opportunity to put our musical interest.
Acting, dancing, and now singing a Grammy winner.
For those movies, and particularly Night Shift, and you did Gung Ho.
Really? Never knew that.
Welcome to Just Talkin'. We have a great show for you today. Why? We are here at the Midwest Gaming Classic here in Milwaukee. So let's go on in. Okay, here we are at the Midwest Gaming Classic here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm with your name?
Dan Lucen.
Dan, what a great event today. Let's talk, how did this whole Midwest Gaming Classic get started?
18 years ago, my partner Gary and I started a convention just for fun in like a small way where we had about 100 people show up, and it was just like, hey, let's have fun and let's get together and just play games. And then every year after that, people have said, we loved this, let's do this. And then someone who came would always say, all right, I want to do something more, and they would add more. And so every year we just kind of grow because we add more and more friends and people who want to show more stuff, and now here we are.
Did it start in Milwaukee or somewhere else?
It started in Milwaukee, basically about a mile away from here. It's always been in the Milwaukee area. The farthest away that we've ever been is Economowoc.
Wow. And you get people from all over.
Yeah, one of the people who helps, for instance, get all of our VIPs is from England, and he flies in for the event, and he spends hours helping us get all the different VIPs to come. We have people from Japan that have been here. Pretty much every continent has had people here, so it's honestly, it's humbling to know that people think that this is so fun that they want to come from that far away to see it.
So let's talk about what goes on at this event this weekend.
Sure. I mean, there's pretty much every type of gaming that you can imagine. Arcade games, video games, home consoles, pinball machines, tabletop games, air hockey, tabletop card games, a little bit of everything. You can play all those things. And we have almost all of those we have all of those and air hockey and crane games that are available for you to just come in and play. And once you get your ticket, with the exception of the crane games, everything is free. And so you can walk up to any pinball machine, you press start, and you get to play a game on that pinball machine. And it's fun to challenge other people to it and say, like, hey, come on, like, let's play this game here. And that's what it's all about.
Well, I got to ask you, what was one of your favorite video games, arcade?
One of my favorite games is Jurassic Park Pinball. So talking about that first time, my grandfather would give me quarters at the arcade when he was bowling, and so I would go out and I would play, and I remember Jurassic Park Pinball is the first pinball machine that I learned that there was skill in. And so I'd play that game, and I could figure out how to get points, and I could figure out how to start the multi-ball, and I was like, oh my gosh, I look like I'm good at this game. And so I still love that game. It's one of my favorite games ever made, and I'm lucky enough that I actually own one of them. So.
And you got game special guests here too, designers and game designers here?
Yeah, one of the things that we like doing is we like celebrating the games with the people that make the games, because oftentimes those people kind of go overlooked. Like in a movie, you oftentimes see like the actors, but you don't necessarily see the people behind the scenes that are doing the special effects and stuff like that. In games, it's all people for the most part that are behind the scenes, and we like to bring those people out to the show and say thank you for the work that you've done. And it's nice because there's a lot of them that don't get that recognition otherwise.
Well, this is just a fabulous event here. If people want more information about Midwest Gaming Classic, do you have a website that people can log on to?
Absolutely. The best way to go is go to MidwestGamingClassic.com, and there's a whole bunch of information about the show. And then if you can't make it this year, but you're interested in coming in the future, you can look up Midwest Gaming Classic on Facebook, and we have a very active Facebook page, and we post things on there pretty frequently, even when we're in the off season.
Well, once again, this is just a fabulous event, a lot of turnout, and just keep coming back year after year. It's a great event. So thank you so much for telling us today.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, here we are at Midwest Gaming Classic, and I'm with your name?
Jake.
Jake, what booth are we at here today?
We're at Game Guys.
Game Guys. Okay, this is really neat. So maybe explain what you got here at Game Guys.
Right here we have some of our bar top arcade machines. They are just like the full-size upright ones. They're just kind of compacted a little bit. That way they're easier to haul around, store. People can fit them in a lot of smaller spaces, so that way that people with apartments and other areas can have them instead of having to have a full-size machine.
Very, very neat. How did you guys come up with something like this?
With the way that technology progressed and the way that LCD screens were getting cheaper and cheaper, is a lot more affordable to start to design them. That I just kind of designed one for myself. A couple of my friends say, hey, those are really cool. Why don't you make one or two for me? Then I made a couple of them, and we brought them down to Midwest Gaming Classic 7 years ago. Was the first time that we had them down here.
And it seems like a big hit, too.
Yeah, every year we have lots of people that play them. Last year we had one machine that sat out all weekend, and we had about 1,200 plays over the course of the weekend on it.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah. And it's not just the one game, it's multiple.
Yeah, it's multiple games. Each one has more than one game on it, so that way you don't need to necessarily have a full arcade in your house to be able to play all of the games. So that way you can have one machine that plays multiple games on it.
What do you think of the event today?
It's nice. I love the Wisconsin Center here. It's really nice. It's a great show. Lots of people, good traffic, lots of fun.
Why do you think those video games are coming back now?
Yeah, a big trend over the last probably 10 years. Retro video games have been coming back with the vengeance, and it's kind of nice seeing everything get revived again. You're starting to see arcades pop up again and be sustained. It's really nice and really awesome.
So more information about, do you have a website or a Facebook?
Facebook page of Game Guys.
Thank you, and I'm with your names.
Jaden and Rob.
Great event, great turnout. Well, what do you guys think of the event today so far?
It's going real well. It's our first time at this show from Ohio, and we've been busy. It's good to see the crowd here today, so I'm definitely enjoying it.
What booth are we at today? What's it called?
We are called the Holy Grail Video Game Store. We're not an actual store. We kind of go to shows and set it up, sell online. So, yeah, just come check us out. Well, we have a wide variety of games from NES, the old stuff, NES, Super NES, Atari, Genesis, new stuff, Xbox, PS4, you name it, we have it.
Rob, why do you think this big influx of people want to play old video games back today?
I think it's great. You know, a lot of people, young and old, kind of miss the good old days. And in my case, I had pinball machines in my home, and my son was introduced to it, but then he got introduced to the video games like we have here, and next thing I know, my collection fever went to him, and now he's collecting them. Wow. So you got two guys in the family collecting stuff, and it gets a little bit out of hand.
Okay, there you go. Well, you talked about pinball. I believe you guys have a pinball expo that you do every year. Let's hear all about that.
Yeah, Pinball Expo is something that was started back in '85, and it's for collectors and enthusiasts. And this year we'll be having our 34th year, and this will be in Wheeling, Illinois. But we tour a pinball factory, Stern Pinball, and we have tournaments there, and there's so much going on. It's a little bit everything for everybody.
Sounds like a lot of fun. When's the next one coming up?
October 17th to 21st, and hopefully we'll see you guys there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody and anybody will be there. We have a lot of the pinball designers, too. Some people like to meet the designers, so they'll be walking the show, and you get a chance to meet them firsthand.
For the Holy Grail, do you guys have a website or a Facebook presence?
Yeah, so we have a website, the Holy Grail Video Game Store.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out to this event. It's a great event today, and we'll see you in October for the video game.
Thank you for allowing us to meet you, man.
All right, there you go.
If you can't sleep, I'll be there soon. If you can't sleep, I'll be in the next room. If you can't sleep, I'll be there soon. If you can't sleep, I'll be in the next room.
Here we are at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I'm with, what's the band?
Tiger Night.
Tiger Night. Okay, and how'd you guys get started?
Me and Molly were in school together, kind of flipping burgers, and we both were playing in different bands. And through becoming friends, we just kind of found out that we both liked the same music, and we started writing songs together. And Alex has been playing with Molly for probably close to 15 years. And so he's normally with us as our drummer. We're a big full electric band normally. And then we picked up Jeff a couple years ago. And we found him on the street.
It was between you and the other guy?
Maxwell was very generous, but the band was actually his idea. We were going to be initially a power trio, and luckily I ended up being a really bad bass player and wanted to focus on vocals, so it was Maxwell's baby, and then we sort of developed after a while. We played songs for about a year together, honestly, before we actually picked a band name and started playing out, so it was a slow burn.
Were these all originals that I?
We play all original material.
Rip through those originals. That's great. So do you guys have like a CD or something that we can look?
We do. We actually just finished recording our second full-length record, and it comes out actually in a little over a month from now. Sublunary. It's our follow-up to our self-titled album.
This is the first time at Midwest Gaming Classic.
Our second year at the Midwest Gaming Classic. So
absolutely. Well,
yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a great event, great time. You guys great. And then if so, want more information? Do you have a website or a Facebook?
Yeah, we've got TigerKnightMusic.com, and all of our like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook is TigerKnightMKE. But yeah, we're all over the place. Bandcamp, iTunes, Spotify, all the good stuff.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. It's a great event, and thanks so much for playing tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, here we are at the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I am with excellent designer creator Brian Cullen. Brian, nice to see you today. What do you think of the event today?
The event is fantastic. It's so huge. I've only been here. This is my third year, and the last two were bursting at the seams, and it's so great to see this one, even though it's such a much bigger and better venue. It still seems like it's packed. It seems like, people are just coming out from everywhere. It's wonderful.
Well, we're standing in a great game, Rampage. How did you get involved in making up Rampage?
Rampage was my baby. It was my concept. We'd come back from a show, and I said, well, why can't we do with our hardware at Midway? Why can't we do big background things? And why can't we? No, you can't because of this. You can't. Finally, it's like cut to the chase. And they said, unless you want to animate a rectangle, that's all you can do. And I looked at the gal, another artist, and I said, okay, a building falling into itself, that's an animating rectangle. I'll make some big monsters. We got a game. Yeah, it was
a fun game. Now, you're a hit of this weekend, too. They got the movie version of Rampage. Have you seen it?
The producers were wonderful. They invited myself and my wife out to the black carpet premiere last week. It is wonderful. It is a tremendous amount of fun. They were nice enough even to fly me down during the last week of shooting last summer. So I've got to meet the actors and everybody. And then this past week, they were nice enough to even let me come up to the after party. The stars were wonderful. The production people, the cast, the crew, they put their hearts into it. And it shows. The movie is fun, and it's not my game, right? But they captured the spirit of fun and the heart and everything. They did a tremendous job.
I think why your game works is that cartoonish, that fun, type of thing, and and having families play because you got three that can play it. Was that your intention from the beginning?
It really was. We wanted to make a game that. We knew the 14-year-old boys were going to crush on every game, but I wanted to make a game where he could play with his little sister or his dad or his mom, and everybody could enjoy it. So one of the things we did with the original Rampage is there's no wrong way to play it. You want to knock everything down as fast as you can? Great. You want to explore and just pick the good things to eat? Great. You want to fight with each other? You can fight. If you want to cooperate. So that was very much from the start what I had in mind when we came up with the game.
And how was it during that time? You were in the heyday where those video games were just ballooning. How was it back then?
I was kind of clueless. I still am. I never really knew where I was in the industry or in the world. I was lucky enough to be employed to be doing this. And I didn't know until years later that, hey, we were right there in the middle of it. We were innovating. We were having that kind of fun. It was short answer, it was a great time to get into video games because it was still so much in its infancy that we could try stuff without 5 tiers of middle management to go through, and it only took 3, 4, 5 guys at most to make a game. So there was a lot of creative freedom, a lot of peer-to-peer, because it's always a team thing. It's not the designer who makes the game. He's maybe like the director on a film. There's a lot of people that make games great, and it was a wonderful time to learn to make games.
And I'm with your name.
Jeff Lee.
Jeff, great to have you here. You're a special guest, and you're actually the creator of Qbert. Is that correct?
That is correct, although I'm always quick to point out it was a team effort. He couldn't done it without a crew, but I originated the germ of the ideas and, pixelated the pyramid of cubes and populated with some characters, and Warren Davis came along and said, can I take that and do something with it? And I said, sure. And Warren kept some of my ideas and threw out a bunch of others, and had ideas of his own, and other people would come by and contribute opinions. And like I say, team effort kind of grew, and some things were accidental, and it came together pretty quickly, though, relatively speaking, for games of that era. And our boss used to joke how he went away on a trip to Japan looking for some games to license, and when he came back, we had this game up and running, and blew his mind.
It's a fun game. Why do you think that game caught on as it did? I mean, anybody says Qbert, they know exactly what we're talking about.
Somehow, with his looks and the sounds that he makes, projects some kind of personality and then people relate to that somehow, and it's just endearing, I guess.
Now, what company was Qbert from? Which company?
It was D. Gottlieb and Company, Gottlieb Amusement Games. They later changed their name to Milestar, which became, when they told us at the meeting it was going to be Milestar, Warren actually said, oh, he spelled that backwards, you got Rat Slime. And Rat Slime is the name of the company that Tom and I formed, ex-Milestar employees, and we're working on some old and new game ideas that we hope to have out there for the public in the next couple years.
How was it working in the heyday of those arcade games? Because it just was so special when people look back at it.
It was great. It was, there's no doubt about it. It was like a dream job. Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're working on, what's the name of the new game that you and Tom are working on?
Well, at this point it's called Trash Bots. That name may change. I proposed this game back in 1981. It never got done. But the kind of workflow we had at Gottlieb, programmers pretty much pick and choose their projects. And I'm not a programmer, I'm the artist. So it never got done. And Tom and I reconnected a few years ago. And I said, do you want to work on something? And he said, yeah.
Now you brought here, I didn't know there was more different type of Qbert games. Let's hear, because I heard just Qbert, I see Cube.
Right, well, this one as an alternate game would be one of the better known ones, because it was released out there, and I think there were some home versions. Some of the people have told me, oh yeah, I remember playing this Qbert's Cubes on Atari, or I don't know which systems, but this was programmed by a guy named Neil Bernstein. He was, one of the employees there at Milestar. I think this does say Milestar too. Yeah, it is a Milestar game. And I'm not sure if he designed all the gameplay, but I think he did. And it's kind of innovative, incorporating like tic-tac-toe ideas into it. And then I got to design a new cast of characters. I didn't really do any of the game design on that. I would give all the credit to Neil, but I did those graphics. And the other one there is Warren Davis's director's cut, you might call it. That's the Qbert with the level of difficulty he wanted.
And now everybody knows Qbert because he's popping up in the movies, the Pixels, I think Wreck-It Ralph or something like that.
Wreck-It Ralph and Pixels,
Ralph and all that stuff. So he's around. Do you think there'll be, you might create another Qbert game along the lines, or is that just...
Well, I certainly won't because, I don't own the game rights or anything like that. So from time to time, Sony or whoever owns it, they put something out for one new platform or another. But yeah, I would not be consulted on that. That's their thing.
Do you have a website or a Facebook presence people can see your upcoming work? Or
we actually do have a website for Rat Slime Productions. I'm not really kind of on top of it. I had my son set it up. But there's not too much new information, but I'll get on his case and have him update it. Right. We do have some animation showing from the game, but there'll be more coming as this game really starts to gel. We'll have more, and I want to be posting more about that for sure.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming out to this event. It's a great event just all weekend, and thank you so much for talking.
Oh, you're welcome, Jason.
Thank you. I'm with your name.
Tom Malinowski.
Tom, great to have you here today. What do you think of the event today?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, this is my third year. I've come out here as mostly a sidekick to Jeff Lee, and we just thought, this time we're going to try to introduce a prototype game.
Well, he says you're working on a game now. What is this called? Trash Bots?
Yeah.
Let's hear all about it.
Well, it's basically kind of a fantasy space game where you have two robots trying to obtain energy to get out of the area, and they have no weapons. They just have the ability to either attract or repulse asteroids, bring them in, and regenerate their power supply and such, or repel the bad asteroid towards the opponent.
Why do you think, arcades were back in 82, we're in the year 2018, and we got a ballroom just full of people. Why do you think people are back wanting to see these classic arcade games?
That's a good question. I think it's because it doesn't exist like it did in 82. I mean, that was the way to play. I mean, no one had home consoles that did anything. They were very primitive Ataris, and they'd go here and see cutting-edge technology. And it was a business model for about 5 years, and then home games got so much better, and people just stopped going to arcades, and the whole business collapsed. But ironically, I think a lot, at that time, it was the most creative game environment in the world. I mean, everybody was creating games like they were making movies, and it was, that was like making a movie. You would go there and get released into an arcade, and you'd put your quarter in just like you go see a movie. But once it, went away, that whole industry went away. And so what we're seeing here is, I guess, an homage to the creative force that existed back then.
As a parent, I know one of the most important times to be with your children is when they aren't feeling well. For many families, there's a place they can go to find the support they need.
Ronald McDonald House Charities programs provide that supportive environment so families can be together while their children are dealing with serious illnesses.
You can volunteer your time at a local Ronald McDonald House or drop your change in an RMHC canister.
Today is a great day for all of us to show our support.
To find out how you can get involved in your community, visit rmhc.org.
Okay, here we are again at the Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm honored to be with the great designer, arcade computer designer, David Crane. David, thanks so much for coming to this event. What do you think of the event today?
It's great. I understand they just moved from a smaller event in a hotel to this big Wisconsin Convention Center, and it's great turnout.
Now, you are responsible for a lot of great Activision, Atari games. How did you get involved in game developing programming?
Well, I actually got started at Atari because Al Miller, who was my tennis doubles partner, worked at Atari, and he was tasked with putting in an ad in the local newspaper for video game designers. And he handed it to me. He said, "Here, proofread this because it goes in the newspaper tomorrow." And I read it and I said, "Sounds like a fun job." And I interviewed the next morning and had a job by that afternoon.
Now, what did you do at Atari?
I was sat down to make Atari 2600 games. Atari had come out with their Atari video computer system, they called it back then, and they just needed more people to make video games. And they pretty much just sat us down and said, "See if you can make a game." We had very little direction, very little help. Here's the manual how it works, go at it.
Now, you did go off and work with Activision. Did you start Activision? Let's hear all about the Activision age.
Yeah, there were 4 of us at Atari who worked together. We went to lunch together. We helped each other on our games. And we had found out that we were basically making games that were making 60% of Atari's earnings. Millions and millions of dollars, and we were getting paid pittance of salaries. So we went to Atari and said, you know, there's something wrong here. This is not equitable. And they just said, no, you're just another guy back in the lab. You know, you're not important to us. So we spun off and we left Atari and founded Activision.
And they made such great games, and even the artwork and the color scheme as well. Did you play a part in that? How the whole aspect of that?
Well, Activision was founded basically with 4 game creators and 1 business guy who had come from the record industry. And so he had a great marketing eye. And one of the things that was important to him is that all of our product line would look the same. It would look, you could tell, you'd look at it and say, well, that's Activision. And he did it with colors, he did it with logos, he did it so that if you stack them on your shelf, you could see they all look kind of alike. They look like a family. And so Jim Levy, who was our CEO, was responsible for a lot of the Activision look and feel.
And it worked. It worked. And I was a big fan of Activision as well. What games did you work on? All of them, or what was your favorites that you liked to work on?
Well, I made a bunch of games for Activision. My first was Dragster, a 2-player drag racing game. I did Fishing Derby, Laser Blast, Freeway, Grand Prix, and Pitfall, of course, is my best known game. It was one of the biggest selling games of all time. A couple things we did when we founded Activision is Atari didn't promote the designer of the game. And yet, as far as we were concerned, we were authors, just like a book author. And we like to have our name on the game, you know. And in fact, if you played a David Crane game and you liked it, you might come back and buy the next David Crane game. And the fact that we had a CEO from the record industry, he knew how to do that, right? But we also, since our names were on the games, we worked really hard to make them as good as they possibly could be. And you've said that you enjoyed the Activision games. They seem to be a cut above from Atari games of the time. That was just all hard work.
Even the graphics were better than the Atari. We really pushed the boundaries there.
We did. We figured out new ways to use the Atari hardware to make it better. We specified certain colors that really would pop on an old television set, so we would use those colors instead of just any color, and we made a lot of decisions that made the games look better.
Being at this convention, it seems not only this, but it's like there's always just this big wave where people want to look back at 82 and see that. Why do you feel there's just such a big crowd here and want to come back to relive those old arcade home games?
Yeah, it's amazing. The retro video game movement is very, very big. I mean, it really comes down to what we made back in the 80s are video games that were fun to play. And you can't really say that about Call of Duty. You know, it's an experience, it's great, there's a lot of good things about it, but the one thing you can't say is, that was fun. Okay? War is not fun, right? So, yeah, and I've spoken to people that I was on panels with at conferences who say, you know, I make these big Call of Duty type games, but I tried once to make a game like you guys used to make. Only on a single screen with very little graphics, how do you make a game fun? And it was a skill that we developed that gave you a lot of hours of enjoyment. And people remember those days. They remember them fondly, and they go back and still play the games because they're fun.
I agree. You did an excellent job on all those games. We appreciate all your work and over the years with your gaming as well. Thank you so much for coming to Milwaukee, and thanks so much for having me.
Happy to be here.